this is my presentation screencast of my ideas regarding the Makerspace movement and how to make classrooms more friendly to creativity. So starting off with the first question, my interest, motivation, social connections that give me the moxie to pursue what I pursue. It all started with Legos for me. I mean, that was my own personal Makerspace when I was younger, and I created all kinds of projects with Legos. I have a military members in my family as well as law enforcement, and I was also in law enforcement as well. So my social connections were with a lot of law enforcement people, as well as some teachers now that I've started the teaching profession. But it kind of shaped me in a way that I'm a go-getter. I always get after it. I'm around motivated people that are always willing to give 100%, and that's just how I've always developed as a person. Sports teams, I'm a huge sports fan, and having sports teams that I support and that I go around and see also kind of gives me inspiration to pursue my passion, and also just being a good citizen and a human being in the world, being a good example for other people and trying to add to the positive, not the negative. In order to get my students' interests, motivations, and social connections, I would provide a survey at the beginning of the year where I can tabulate some of the things that they're interested in and then keep tabs on them. And I mean, not in a creepy way, but follow up with them on things that they enjoy and things that they like. Show interest in their interests as well. You know, read up on a little bit of stuff, look at a little stuff, listen to some of the stuff that they like, and then, you know, ultimately show them that you care about it and that, you know, you're interested in what they're interested in. Teaching multiple modalities, just being able to target kids at different levels with auditory, visual, kinesthetic learning, socio portions of the learning modalities, as well as, you know, just targeting their interests. The concepts in the classroom, I teach an English class, so the Makerspace stuff that I researched seemed more towards STEM and science and math, but you could use it, definitely the idea, in English. And the simplest way would just have students create and produce a book. It would be a real world application. There's plenty of authors that write books. It's a small minority of writers, the people that actually write, but you could have them ultimately produce a book, and that it does have a real world application, a little bit of natural curiosity to it. You can also create a student newspaper or website. I was thinking more along the lines of site, because media and print is pretty much dead, but create a site that students can, you know, display various articles that they wrote or passions or interests, and, you know, ultimately let them kind of create their own thing. Slideshow or presentations to be more for the inside the classroom. Give students free reign to create and present information in a way that they see works for them, and, you know, give them some of the tools where they can kind of pick and choose how they want to do it. Or they could ultimately make a video presentation, same thing, kind of give them parameters and then kind of turn them loose and allow them to explore their own creativity. How do I foster independence, risk-taking, perseverance? Honestly, to foster independence, I start with group work. And this may seem counterproductive, but if the students are learned to support each other, then they can learn to support themselves. So rather than leaning on me, I put their education on them and have them get invested and involved in what they're learning so that they can hold each other accountable, but also help each other out when they're, you know, when they're working and when they're not working. Do not negatively teach mistakes. So don't hammer the kids for when they make a mistake, but rather encourage it and say, hey, good try, you know. Continue to do that, foster that curiosity and that independence so that when they are incorrect, they can move on and continue to learn. Give second, third, and maybe fourth chances. If you pull things away and say, all right, that's it, you failed, let's go on to the next thing, you don't foster any learning. But if you can show kids the same idea in different ways, they can learn it that second or third. Maybe they need a fourth time before they finally get it down. You should always be able to circle back around and allow these kids to take more risks. Applaud effort, success, and failures, all of them together. Hey, good try. Hey, good job when you did it right. And then when you did it wrong, hey, good try, you can do it again. And, you know, that's how we learn. Who will use the Makerspace, the target audience, and who else? I mean, the kids that are most likely to use something like this would be like your ADD, ADHD, and your emotionally disturbed students. They need a timeout. They need a time away to work on it. I know in a 9th grade classroom, I could definitely use this for some, hey, go make me this, or hey, go take some time over there and then we'll come back. It'll almost be like a refocus activity. Struggling learners could be the target audience, kids that are not doing well in class, or they get distracted easily. Those would be your target audience. But you could also have just creative students that just enjoy being in it. They come in during their lunch and they use the Makerspace to create stuff, and that's just how they're wired. What skills do I want my kids to learn? First and foremost is critical thinking. To be able to take a moment away from something and not have emotion dictate their decisions. They need to think hard about things that they're going to do later on in their lives and why they're doing it. And that kind of leads into the second point, which is question everything. You should be questioning what people tell you. You should be questioning what you're reading, what you're writing, why. And it's that questioning that leads to curiosity, that leads to learning. But if you don't have a curiosity for it and you're not interested in learning more, you'll never be able to, learn nearly as much as you want to, even if you put an active effort into it. You have to genuinely be interested or develop interest in something. So you should start to question everything. The growth mindset also kind of goes along with that, to have these kids just to continue to, this is not where my education stops, or this is not where learning stops, that I can continue to grow and that I can continue to move on even in the face of adversity. And then be good citizens and ultimately to be good leaders, to help each other, and then in doing so also help themselves and move forward, have passion for things, and to pursue what it is that they want to do in life. So the crafting space and the need to kind of use it again in an English classroom. I saw that the way I could do it more would be like a reading area or a focus area. They would have books and comfortable seating. You could have like notepads and pens and pencils and maybe Chromebooks, but in that regard, in an English classroom, I don't find it as necessary to have a makerspace. It would look a little bit different, but they could do it for creative writing, and then there would be alternative texts that they could read as well if they're ahead, or if they need time away. There'd be, I know my kids like comic books and manga and stuff like that. So there could be stuff over there that they could read that they're genuinely interested in, stuff that they read anyway at home. So if a kid's amazing at making, I think you should first encourage them. Hey, great job. That's awesome. The way that you made this, that you created this, your creativity is really a gift, or it's a great talent to have. But then also challenge them to be better. Hey, what else could you add to that? If you're going to make it one more time, what would you do? Obviously when something is done, it's done, but you could also say, well, if you didn't just finish here, what else would you do? And to see where they could push their thinking along further. And then also just to teach them to ask questions about everything. Again, how can we make this better? If you're going to make this for something else, how would you do it? And then just continue to foster that creativity. And if a kid's terrible at making, it's the exact same thing. Encourage them. Hey, you know what? You're doing a great job. How else could we make this better? Or why do you think it's so bad? What is one way we could fix that? And again, that kind of falls into B and C as well. I think if a kid's struggling at it, or if they're great at it, you can encourage them the same way. That, ultimately we can't really judge creativity. I mean, we can by census, but just because somebody believes they're not creative, it doesn't mean that they're not, that they have a certain level of creativity that maybe is unexplored, or they have it in a different area besides making things. And then ultimately, what's the teacher's role in this whole situation? And number one should be a facilitator. You should be there not to really run the show, to just make sure that the train doesn't come off the tracks. But if the train starts to come off the tracks, you got to be a good role model and be able to show kids that through your actions and the way that you deal with things, that you're not going to explode on them, and that you'll remain calm and tell them, how to do these things. But ultimately, at the end of the day, you're judge, jury, and executioner. Hey, if you step out of line too many times, or we're having problems with this, we're going to have to deal with it. And yeah, that's my presentation on Makerspace. Thanks.